What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham Jason Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network. And today we're talking the November 30th, 2020 edition of Raw Talk. This edition, I would say, kind of continued the trend of unspectacular shows as of late. Raw Talk really isn't all that must-see anyway. I do think Talking Smack is the far superior show. Caleb Braxton is better than Charlie Caruso in the host role. Paul Heyman is better than R-Truth in the analyst role. R-Truth is always joking, and I've said this before. He can be entertaining, but it's gotten to a point where it takes away from the show more than it adds to it. And I know, like, the off-the-cuff remarks and stuff are a highlight of these talk shows, both Raw Talk and Talking Smack. But when it's time to get serious, and sometimes the guests, obviously, most of the time they are, taking a serious approach to what they have to say. Truth doesn't really add anything to that, and then they kind of get off topic, talking about something completely random. And it doesn't really make for compelling programming at all. So I continue to say this, and I will say this, going forward, that Braxton and Heyman are just a far superior duo when it comes to these talk shows than Charlie Caruso and R-Truth. That being said, though, this wasn't a terrible show. None of the guests they had were overly obnoxious or anything. Sometimes they've had that with, like, Peyton Royce and Lacey Evans, for example, were on the show a couple of weeks ago. They were terrible. Maybe it was last week, I don't remember, but it's been in the last couple of weeks. This episode, I thought, I thought they were actually, they were good for the most part. Sheamus was the best part about the show. They had Dana Brooke on and Ricochet separately to talk about Retribution and their involvement with the group on Raw last night. So Truth actually wore Christmas colors to kick off the episode, which I thought was cool, even though it was still technically November and today's December. But Christmas season is upon us, so I appreciated that. They quickly recapped the ending to Raw, the Randy Orton, Alexa Bliss, and Fiend segment from the beginning of Raw, which were easily the two best parts of the show. Everything else in the middle, aside from the triple threat, kind of questionable. The Symphony of Destruction match actually was pretty enjoyable, so it was a mixed bag of a show. A lot of questionable booking decisions, to say the least. So they actually bring up, my phone just went off, I apologize, but they actually bring up how the Fiend might see Alexa Bliss as his property, which is why he took her back from Randy Orton's grasp. I thought that whole thing was weird, but it was a good segment overall. So the first guest they have on is Sheamus, who talks about how Miz TV, he kind of compares it to canceled talk shows. That's how bad it is. But he did enjoy teaming with Drew McIntyre in the main event of Raw last night, And he says that when other people bring up how he's going to turn on Drew eventually, blah, 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 he's saying that those people are just jealous of what they have and the friendship and how far they go back, which goes all the way back, he says, to Irish Whip Wrestling, and also back to when they had their first tryout in WWE in 2006, 2007, because they were signed at the same time, I think along with Wade Barrett. And they talked all about that in Drew's 24. He didn't really go into great detail about that here, but he quickly talked about the history they have dating back almost 15 years. But he wants to go celebrate, I guess their win. I guess they did beat Miz and Morrison via DQ, but he wants to go celebrate with a drink, and he calls the ending to Raw a pure melee. But he says that Drew persevered and was able to, kind of fend off AJ, Miz, and Morrison all on his own. No word on where he was during all of that. I know he was knocked over to ringside at one point, but the fact that he was out for like 10 minutes, what it felt like 10 minutes, was a little ridiculous. So the next guest they have on is Dana Brooke, who talks about how it was a great feeling for her to win her match on Raw this week, beating Reckoning, which was terrible. Now, the match was fine, but the fact that Dana Brooke would be beating Mia Yim, who has way more potential, and props to Dana Brooke. She seems like a nice person. She has improved. She said that here. She said that she wanted to get back at Reckoning for what happened 2 weeks ago when they attacked her and took her out of Survivor Series. And she talks about how hard she's worked and that she wants to show people what she's capable of and that she's not one to mess with, and she feels like she's improved and that the haters are her motivators, blah, blah, blah. But she's just not a very compelling character at all. And maybe that's on WWE for not giving me more of a reason to care about her. I feel like she had honestly more of a character in NXT than she ever has on the main roster. And she was always a better heel as a babyface. She's just fucking boring. And she's been a babyface for years now. That's the weird thing. So, I don't know. She comes across fine, but she's just very boring and bland. I'm hoping that Reckoning's loss, a.k.a. Mia Yim's loss, will pave the way for her to leave Retribution and become Mia Yim again. I mean, she didn't have the mask on anymore by the time the match was over, and I'm hoping that was by design. But she also brought up how Mandy is recovering day to day, and I'm pretty sure Mandy Rose is fine. But she was legit injured a couple of weeks ago in that accident with Nia Jax. and Nia Jax injuring yet another woman. Not much really of a surprise there. But I assume that she'll be back soon, that she isn't seriously hurt, which is good. So the last guest they have on is Ricochet. And again, this is what I'm kind of talking about here. How they bring up, the first thing that R-Truth brought up to Ricochet was, how many superheroes do you know? And Ricochet was not playing along. You could tell he was fucking pissed after coming off his loss to Slapjack earlier on in the evening. So, yeah, he was not in the mood, and thankfully they kind of moved right on from that. But he does say that Retribution is trying to create change through chaos, and all it's doing is creating more chaos. And Charlie at one point actually said, you lost to, or you beat Slapjack tonight, and Ricochet was quick to correct her and saying, actually I lost that match. Thanks for reminding me. I thought that was amazing. Not even Charlie could believe the fact that Ricochet lost to a guy named fucking Slapjack in 2020. Just completely terrible. But he does bring up how it took a number of people for Ali to beat Ricochet. The rest of Retribution had to interfere and get involved in order for Slapjack to win that match. And he feels like he himself is creating change, and he's kind of a one-man island, and he can relate to Retribution and Ali's motives, and Cedric Alexander for getting frustrated. He too can lash out sometimes and get frustrated, but you can't do that. You gotta kind of stay the course and not create more chaos in an attempt to create change. You got to create change in more positive ways, he says. And again, he reiterates he's a one-man island to close off the episode. So, again, a very boring show. Not a bad show. We've had worse episodes for sure that were just like, wow, why am I watching this? Like, Lana's come off as intolerable on the show before. Not recently, but in the past. Natalya, the Iconics, Lacey Evans, some of the male superstars as well. Just a number of people. But I thought this was a good episode. I thought Sheamus was probably the best part about it. He was easily the most relaxed. Ricochet was good. Not the greatest talker, but he was fine. And Dana Brooke, again, she comes across as a nice person. She tries hard. She works hard. I just don't give a fuck about Dana Brooke. And her beating Reckoning is not going to change that. But a decent episode, far from must-see, but it is what it is. I think WWE actually put up a clip from Raw Talk with Sheamus talking about the Drew stuff. So if there's any real part to check out from this episode, it would be that, and it's already up on the channel, so just go check that out. But thanks for checking out this review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Hit that bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. And check out all the other Raw Talk reviews here on the channel in the description box down below in the playlist entitled Raw Talk Reviews. Until next time, guys, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.